The U.S. military is working to guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command confirmed today that American forces destroyed 7 small Iranian boats that attempted to interfere. CBS News national security analyst Aaron MacLean joins us now. He also hosts the School of War podcast and, of course, offers a wealth of knowledge about the Strait, about exactly what's going on. Aaron, today we saw Iran also attack other ships. So walk us through the very latest about what is happening in that waterway.
Sure. It's been a very busy day in the Strait of Hormuz, which, just to remind people, is the single point of access into the Persian Gulf through which 20% of global oil traffic, 10% of all maritime commercial traffic travels. And the situation up until last night was Iran effectively had it closed. It had intimated that this central traffic separation scheme, these white lanes here are the lanes through which ships are supposed to go, was mined. It had encouraged ships to coordinate with the Iranian government to go through Iranian territorial waters. What President Trump and then Central Command essentially said last night was, we are going to open another channel here in the south through Omani waters, and we will, quote unquote, guide, not escort. So there's kind of an explicit rejection of convoy operations, but we will guide ships through this southern passage. And we learned as we woke up this morning that 2 American ships that had been trapped in the Strait, trapped in the Gulf, actually had made it out, while American missile destroyers, guided missile destroyers, had made it into the Gulf, at which point the Iranians retaliated pretty dramatically, striking targets in the UAE, striking a South Korean ship at anchor here off the coast of the UAE, and otherwise causing a fair amount of mayhem as the U.S. Navy sunk 7 of their boats.
And as we monitor this in the coming days, obviously you just mentioned President Trump's announcement of this initiative called Project Freedom, but I wonder what additional threats that we should be watching for as, these U.S. ships try to not escort, but guide these other ships through. Yeah,
well, first, I'm curious to know what the difference between guiding and escorting means. But just to zoom out to address your question here, just to state an obvious point, the Strait of Hormuz here in the middle of the map, all of this, everything up here is Iran. That is the Iranian coast, out of which can emerge these small boats. They could have machine guns mounted on them. They can carry mines. They can carry rockets and other things like that. Iran also retains a store of ballistic and cruise missiles, some of which it shot at the United Arab Emirates today. There's a fair amount of firepower left on the Iranian side that can certainly mess with commercial shipping. You have to balance against that. The U.S. naval assets and Marine Corps assets that have been in the region manning this blockade are now being deployed forward into the area of the Strait. We just learned it was an unspecified number of ships that went in overnight, are in the vicinity of the Strait. If I'm a small Iranian boat looking to harass shipping, I got a machine gun. Sure, I can cause a bad day for the commercial sailors on that ship. I wouldn't mess with a guided missile destroyer with a small Iranian craft. So there are assets on both sides of this.
And obviously, the president still wants to find some sort of diplomatic off-ramp. Can you bring us up to date about the latest peace proposal on the table that the president has said he would have to have the final word on?
Well, what seems to be holding up negotiations right now, based on what we can tell, is that so far the Iranians have only been willing to discuss essentially a trading of the end of the American blockade on Iranian ports and their own closure of the Strait of Hormuz, this sort of dueling blockade situation. And they want to punt on the other issues. They want to punt on the nuclear issue, for example, for later discussions. That's not been acceptable to President Trump thus far. And keep in mind that the ceasefire, such as it is right now, that's been in effect since April the 7th, that ceasefire was supposed to involve an opening of the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians did not come through on that. So I think there's some understandable reluctance on the American side to kind of have Lucy and the football played on them again with a promise of the opening of the Strait of Hormuz in return for other concessions, and then that opening not coming to pass. We seem to be caught in that loop right now. And the longer the strait is closed, the more serious the economic consequences are going to be for the globe. And here in the United States, we had that long conversation about jet fuel and Spirit Airlines at the top of the show. You're going to see things like that proliferate, I think, leading to some concern in the administration that it's time to get this strait open.
And I'm glad you mentioned the ceasefire because, of course, anytime you have any ceasefire, it's in a fragile state. I wonder how the latest sort of back and forth in the strait could jeopardize that ceasefire?
Well, this is really a political decision for President Trump. I mean, you had a tremendous amount of stuff today shot here in the area of Fujairah. There was a South Korean ship at anchor off the coast there. I saw a video online of a huge plume of smoke on the coast of the United Arab Emirates there. Other targets in the UAE hit. Obviously, a lot of action out in the Strait with American helicopters going after small boats. Is that a ceasefire? I mean, I think in the common accepted notion of the term, no. But sometimes in the Middle East, I will say you do get things that the parties agree to continue to call ceasefires while there's still some degree of shooting at each other. So where is the line in President Trump's head where he decides that actually it's too much? We're going back to full-scale hostilities. We're going to strike economic targets in Iran. If I had to speculate, I would say that's probably the death of an American or serious damage to American naval assets, none of which happened today.
All right. Well, in the coming days, we will not know, but I know you will be tracking it all, and we appreciate your time. Thank you, Aaron.